Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to this lecture on Parkinson's disease. Today I will be discussing the medications that you can use to treat Parkinson's. Let's go to the main character. In the very first video of Parkinson's disease, I said that levodopa is basically the main character of this presentation. It's very true. So levodopa L-dihydroxy phenylalanine. I can't. I'm just gonna say levodopa. I can't. This is the longer name. Has been the mainstay of Parkinson's disease therapeutics since its effectiveness in 1967. So it's been a long time. So what is it? So levodopa is a large neutral amino acid that serves as a precursor for dopamine synthesis, occurring at nerve terminals within the globus pallidus. Basically, it can help compensate with the loss of dopamine because once brain can receive the bidopa, it can convert it to dopamine. So again, once it enters the brain, it is rapidly converted to dopamine. That's what we need for Parkinson's, and temporarily stored in the presynaptic nerve terminals before its release. The How it can impact patients is that you really have to have a regular dosage of this medication, and because it really takes that's why it takes a long time to treat Parkinson's, because the medication has to be taken regularly for at least like minimum like a year or so. So here we have the responses to levodopa. So there are two types of responses. We have the long duration and the short duration response. In the long duration response is that patients don't really experience fluctuations in the medication effect. So for example, in the morning they feel okay, or at least neutral. They're neutral, and in the afternoon they still feel neutral. It's because this just refers to when there's a longer time between the dosage of the levodopa. So they could have taken it with 8 hours, 8 hour intervals, but they didn't experience any fluctuations in their effects. Short duration response, however, every time they intake the medication, they would immediately feel the effect of it. So short duration response usually, that's why it takes a time for levodopa to kick in, because this SDR would take it would be a milestone for levodopa therapeutics because it only occurs after 2 or more years of continuous levodopa therapy, right? So you can clearly see from this that Parkinson's takes a really long time to treat. Some precautions for levodopa. Patient may experience nausea, hallucinations, or orthostasis. That's why levodopa, although remember what I mentioned in the oh my god, there's an ambulance. I just paused the recording because an ambulance just passed by. Hopefully, hopefully they get to the hospital soon. Okay, so remember what I said in the differential diagnosis that there is dementia with Lewy bodies, and in Parkinson's you also have Lewy bodies, right? So that's why in dementia you don't really medicate with levodopa because it can cause more hallucinations, which is not good because in dementia, right, you already have an altered state of consciousness and you have vivid hallucinations. If you take this medication, it could worsen those symptoms. That's why it's not indicated for dementia with Lewy bodies. So levodopa also has symptoms of dyskinesias, which is involuntary movement, and this has been a staple consequence of long-term therapy of this medication. So, for example, as I've explained in previous videos, chorea is like sudden movements that mimics dancing movements, which are involuntary. Balismus refers to the sudden flinging of the arms or distal extremities. So let's say the patient is sitting down and their arm just rises up. Dystonia is like slowed or sustained type of movement, similar to bradykinesia, but it's lengthening and it's maintaining a certain position. So These symptoms can be actually related to the timing of when a patient uses takes levodopa. So, for example, during the first 32 minutes to 2 hours, so this could be where you get maximal relief, but you also get dyskinesias. So it's like give and take situation. And it could be 20 minutes. You can have diphasic dyskinesia. So you can really see that dyskinesia is a big part. And we also have when patients wake up in the morning, they could have an off dystonia, and this could be painful, sustained cramps, and this could occur if they're under medicated. They're not taking the right dosage. So it really is a give and take type of situation with levodopa. And when patients with PD take it, on the one hand, it can cause relief of their symptoms, specifically tremors. But on the other hand, you get, you know, byproducts like this, like dyskinesias. But if it is used for a long time, you could get SDR. But yeah. So the dosage doesn't really need to wait. I just I repeated it. Okay, sorry. But the dosage you don't really need to memorize, but I'm just adding it here. Here you get this is the dosage. This is the dosage. Oh, right. I forgot to mention. Usually there are what we call inhibitors that could help extend the effects of levodopa. So, for example, here we have decarboxylase inhibitor, which is actually required to be co-administered with levodopa for sufficient enzyme inhibition. So 17 milligrams of this thing, 100 milligrams of this thing, then boom, you're kind of good to go. Next we have catecholamine O methyltransferase inhibitor. So yeah, this has the same effect. Actually, most of the inhibitors have the same effect. They just really extend the effect of levodopa. So levodopa is really the primary medication. So what COMT does is that it blocks the metabolism of levodopa. So remember that levodopa is stored in the presynaptic terminal. COMT can lengthen that storage, so it's not easily metabolized. And here we have common COMT inhibitors. Anything that ends with pone, entacapone, tolcapone, opicapone. You don't need to memorize the dosage, but these are just some common inhibitors. So if you see like a question, uh, true or false, entacapone is an effective treatment for effective aid in extending the effects of levodopa. True, because it's a type of COMT inhibitor. So some precautions, although these are very rare, you could get hepatocellular injury, and you could have neurotoxicity because of the many indications that you will be taking. So yeah, give or take. Again, we have another inhibitor, monoamine oxidase B. So again, this extends the effect of levodopa, and instead of blocking the metabolism, it usually slows the metabolism. So it's very similar. They are very similar. And actually, this inhibitor can be used as a monotherapy, but it does have a smaller effect than levodopa. So you can use it, but yeah, smaller effect. Some these end in ion. Siligyline, guyline, I don't know how to pronounce these. Resigyline, cefminamide. So anything that ends in ion or ide is a MAO-B inhibitor. So this is own, ion, amantadine. So this is this is a type that is not an inhibitor. It's one of the inhibitors, but it focuses on treating tremors and the involuntary movements, so like hemiballismus or ballismus. So it could be used as an aid to levodopa, and it's yes, more specifically for tremors. It could be used as monotherapy for tremors patients because this solely focuses for treating. It's most effective for some patients. It's most effective for those. Precautions are these. There's a lot. So yeah, but it is effective. But yeah, give or take. Yeah, give or take. Anticholinergics, these are similar to amantadine. They also are effective for tremors and involuntary movements. Here is the most common anticholinergics used for PD. One thing to note though, anticholinergics are not advisable for elderly patients because um, they could cause psychotic manifestations like drowsiness or fogginess of thinking. And for all elderly patients who already have, poorer memory than younger patients, it is a big precaution. So if you are gonna start anticholinergic, start with a low dose to see their patient response first. Oh, that's actually it. So again, I'm just gonna go over them really quickly again. So levodopa is the primary medication for Parkinson's, but if you want to extend the effects of it, you could add inhibitors to help, like decarboxylase inhibitor, which is usually the most commonly paired one. But we also have catecholamines, and we also have monoamines, and we also have amantadine. And then amantadine and anticholinergics are more for tremors, right? Remember that they're more for tremors. They're more for dystonia. But anticholinergics are really advisable for elderly patients. And amantadine can be used as a monotherapy if the patient primarily just experiences tremors. And anticholinergics can actually no, it can't be used as a monotherapy, but it does lessen resting tremors. So again, we have what are the four medications? You have levodopa. We have the assisted inhibitors, which are catecholamine O methyltransferase and monoamine oidase B. And we also have amantadine and anticholinergics. So these are the Powerpuff Girls and battling Parkinson's. And that's why Parkinson's disease it's very hard to treat because it takes a lot of time, and you really have to monitor the response of the patient towards certain medications because for example, although amantadine can work at lessening tremors for certain patients, it may not work for other patients. It really depends on the patient's history, how their lifestyle, or how they came about with the disease. So really have to monitor it carefully and watch out for the precautions. Inform the patient of the precautions because these are known side effects. So that's it for the common medication. Oh, cross one. Common medications for Parkinson's disease. Hopefully it's now starting to piece together because we started from discussing the definition. We started and then we went to Lewy bodies and now we're going to medication. It's crazy, right? But hopefully it all makes sense. So the last part will be the last part. The last part will be the last part. The next part will be the last part of this very long lecture. It took me a really long time to collate this, so anyways, I hope you learned something. Goodbye.